This is David Frederick, and I'm Front Row. The Atlanta Omni, November 6, 1983. I think the question I think everybody has in minds was watching on this was released to the WWE Network. I think old school wrestling fans would question why was this show released compared to there's so far many other major shows, whether the Omni, Georgia Championship Wrestling. There are so many other territories and super shows that yet to be released. The way they labeled the show at the Omni after the last Battle of Atlanta. So when they labeled this release of this video to the network, it's called the first show in October 1983 with the Tommy Rich Bud Sawyer Steel Cage match was last Battle of Atlanta. So I guess it's a really alleged claim. Why was there any more shows if it was called the last Battle of Atlanta? It's a very vague, I think, a vague question why they named it this. But yes, Georgia Championship Wrestling would continue on until I believe some of the purchase of 80 in like 84, 85. The show starts off with Chief Joe Lightfoot versus a very young Brad Armstrong. He had very short hair in this match, and why Joe Lightfoot had it labeled Chief. He didn't even think he had even a headdress. If I'm not mistaken, I don't think he was wearing a headdress. Very decent wrestling match. It almost seemed like this was going to go to no. It was announced as a 20-minute match, but the way they were wrestling, the way they continued their very good wrestling match was. It seemed like it was going to go a draw, but Chief Joe Lightfoot he went to the top rope and missed apparently a body splash, but Brent Armstrong kept going a couple of pins. The way they ended the matches looked like they were running out of time, but they weren't. But Brad Armstrong pulls a small package on Chief Joe Lightfoot to win the match. Second match of the night for the Georgia Championship Wrestling National TV title. Ron Garvin versus Jake Roberts. Now, I got several notes on this. First of all, according to history of WWE.com, which covers a lot of the territory results, the first match was supposed to be Pat Rose versus Les Thornton, and instead the video that the network starts with is Joe Lightfoot and Brad Armstrong. Maybe Pat Rose and Les Thornton was canceled, or they didn't bother to videotape the match. But this second match tonight is Ron Garvin and Jake Roberts. Now, this should have been a dream match, but in Georgia Championship Wrestling, they're pretty much, these guys are starting out. They're not rookies, but they're starting out. A couple notes that I learned about. In 1983, the Legion of Doom, managed by Paul Ellering, includes Jake Roberts. It's a well-known fact, and he's now his middle nickname, Jake the Snake Roberts. He is carrying that name, and he's announced from Shreveport, Louisiana, rather than Stone Mountain, Georgia. Maybe the WWF started at Stone Mountain, Georgia location. Ron Garvin announced. Now I think he's Canadian. I have to look up the facts about that part, but he's announced from Montreal, Quebec, Canada. He is not announced as Hands of Stone. No, he's announced as the One Man Gang. I remember another, I think a Georgia match or another match that he's announced as the One Man Gang. This is apparently a 20-minute match, and the TV title was only on the line for 10 minutes of that match. They have done that in the Crockett years, later going into again in the 86, 85 or 86. They did that. Or half the match, you have to defeat the champion in the first half of the minutes of the match. Now, the thing about this match, it's not really exciting. It's not really yes, it's not tape for television. And this title is a TV title changing hands at a house show. But the thing is, they spent more time with their TV promoting shows rather than the big matches at the house shows. And that's why George Scott would want WWF. The Atlanta Omni is George's key arena, where Madison Square Garden is a key arena for WWF. But this is not really an exciting match. I don't want to discredit this match whatsoever. It's really cool to see these guys in their youth, in the Georgia territory. The one thing that really throws you off is Ron Garvin's blonde hair, including Paul Ellering's, Jake Roberts' manager, his blonde hair. I think Ron Garvin always had the blonde hair, maybe, but maybe it's the style of his hair. It just doesn't look right. Um, yeah, Jake Roberts does look better with his like red sweatpants, I guess they would call it. I was just listening to a podcast about Jake Roberts. Also about this being a TV title. Now, this is going to be a title change. And looking up the TV title history, in this Ron Garvin's first run as the TV title, he had defeated the Iron Sheik in July, and this is November. So it was a pretty good run with the TV title. And coming into 1984, there'd be a couple different title changes, and they changed the name of the title from Georgia TV title to national TV title, and becomes world television title. But this TV title has nothing to do with the TV title that Tully Blanchard and Dusty Rhodes would carry 85 through 86 and so on into the Crockett years. It's because Georgia had their own TV title, and Crockett had the Mid-Atlantic TV title, and Dusty would have it renamed TV title and World TV title. But this is Georgia's TV version of the title. Again, it's a cool match to watch with Jake Roberts, Ron Garvin, and Ron Garvin they're both very vaguely using their finishing moves. Ron Garvin's he's using his hands. It's not. He is using Hands of Stone on Jake Roberts, knockout punches. Yeah, and Jake is reacting pretty good. Now, Jake Roberts does land a DDT, I guess, on Ron Garvin, and he does pin him to win the TV title. But apparently, I don't know, the fans or the referee seriously reacted to Jake Roberts. I guess something was, maybe the fans? I don't. Something was pointed out that he used a foreign object before the DDT to knock out Ron Garvin. Now, I had to look back at that, and he uses either tape or rope or something very, very vaguely. Very vaguely. You can very vaguely even see it even from the camera point of view, and it wasn't much. And the thing was, the referee seriously searched Jake Roberts' kind of sweatpants or long pants he was wearing. He thoroughly searched for a weapon. Wow. And it wasn't much. But Jake Roberts used his DDT, and it wasn't really one of his better DDTs. No, not by a long shot. No. Jake Roberts, when he held you in the a side arm bar, then he goes flat straight to the mat. Like other wrestlers that would copy the DDT, Jake kind of bent Garvin's head and did his DDT drop maneuvers. So it really wasn't one of Jake Roberts' better DDTs, but he pins Ron Garvin to win the TV title. Now, also ironic is Jake Roberts doesn't react. Oh, I'm the new TV champion. I won the title. Beat Ron Garvin. No, Paul Ellering is jumping up and down. Here's my man won the TV title. Paul Ellering is reacting far more excited than Jake Roberts is. But maybe that's Jake Roberts' attitude. But Jake Roberts defeats Ron Garvin to win the national TV title. This would be the first. This may have been the first match. I'm gonna say the first match between the two, but title change wise, this is the first between the two. Next match, Jimmy the Boogie Woogie Man Zion versus the Great Kabuki with Gary Hart. I have to laugh at this one, let alone the two of them. The kind of, oh man, the kind of guy, a wrestling match between these two for whether it's Georgia or Mid-Atlantic. Jimmy Valiant, oh man, he has a big mouth, and he's mouthing off at Great Kabuki before he even gets in the ring. And mouths off. I love he mouthed off to manager Gary Hart, and this is long before the Paul Jones feud. This is only a few months before into 1984. Valiant throws that ball that he challenges or threatens Gary Hart, Kabuki's manager. You got 5 seconds to get out of the ring. You bald headed geek. Gary Hart stands his ground and with his fingers counts to 5. I give Gary Hart not even guts, but he is the actor. But what happens is this match it's not even a wrestling match that you have to pay attention to. Not even that part. But Valiant enters the ring and he goes after Gary Hart very briefly, and Gary Hart Valiant goes after punching and whatnot after Gary Hart, and Gary Hart is not selling or reacting to Jimmy Valiant whatsoever. Then comes the Jimmy Valiant and Kabuki, if you want to call it a wrestling match, a fight typically between it's just the type of thing. It's a type. Jimmy Valiant doesn't do wrestling matches. If you call it sleeper or overreacting to punches. Great Kabuki makes it's a vague comeback between the two. What's more shocking is Jimmy Valiant should have been disqualified at least 3 times. And what I mean by that is, okay, when Jimmy Valiant's got Great Kabuki down, he does some vague chokehold on Kabuki, and referee Scrappy McGowan, who's done this is his 3rd match of the night. Scrappy McGowan is as referee, he's warning Valiant about his chokeholds. Jimmy Valiant actually grabs referee Scrappy McGowan at least 2 to 3 times with a chokehold, choking the referee. Are you kidding me? He's grabbing Scrappy McGowan at least 2 to 3 times, at least twice. It's like I'm challenging I'll tell you what a chokehold is. Right there and then he should have disqualified Valiant. My God, he's attacking the referee. Later on, as Kabuki makes his comeback, and then comes Jimmy Valiant. He does his sleeper hold on almost anybody he wrestles with 2 to 3 times, but Scrappy McGowan is kind of behind, behind the two as Valiant's holding. Valiant's got a hold of Kabuki. He throws Kabuki right into the referee. I think that'd been the 3rd disqualification. I would almost think that was intentional. It may or may not, but it seemed intentional. Scrappy McGowan is down. In comes Gary Hart. Then finally Gary Hart reacts to kind of punches or Gary Hart. Jimmy Van does kind of chokehold with I guess his wrist tape. Okay. When Jimmy Van then grabs a hold of Gary Hart, and he covers him with it. Jimmy Valiant's covering Gary Hart like a pinfall. Scrappy McGowan is so out of it from being knocked down by the Kabuki push that Jimmy Valiant threw Kabuki into him, knocked him down. Scrappy McGowan referee actually makes a 3 count as Jimmy Valiant's covering Gary Hart. I thought somehow the match would continue. No, Scrappy McGowan raises Jimmy Valiant's hand in victory. Oh my God. Scrappy McGowan is so out of it that... Wait a minute. Valiant threw Kabuki into you. You're kind of knocked out. The ref bump. Gary Hart comes in. Jimmy Valiant's fighting with him. Jimmy Valiant knocks Gary Hart down. The referee doesn't even see who's pinning who, and he makes a 3 count. Jimmy Valiant pins Gary Hart. So Jimmy Valiant's defeated Great Kabuki. Okay. Oh, I said this match is strange, let alone the match. Next match of the night, if you can call it a match. Mad Dog Buzz Sawyer against Abdul the Butcher. Oh my God. There wasn't even it's a brawl. It's a brawl. Now, the unusual thing about, let alone not even the match, is, and I guess 2 to 3 weeks time, maybe Georgia TV could explain it. Apparently, since the last Battle of Atlanta, where Precious Paul Ellering was managing Buzz Sawyer, apparently that ended. And now Paul Ellering is managing Abdul the Butcher, and Buzz Sawyer has turned face, fan favorite, and the crowd is going for Buzz Sawyer. This is a brawl for, I mean, and with not even barely 2 to 3 minutes, if less, the referee automatically calls it both disqualified or no contest. Buzz Sawyer and Abdul are brawling out of control. Now, one thing, it's not even it's the brawl. They continue fighting all over the Atlanta Omni floor, the arena. They brawl all into the crowd, all the way in the back. This reminds me, it would be 3 years from now, Starrcade 86, the Louisville Street Fight, and Tony Schiavone announces that matches. It's a Louisville Street Fight. This match would have been an Atlanta Street Fight. Tony Schiavone announces they can fight anywhere on the Omni floor, and that's exactly what this match did. Now, if this would have been called the Atlanta Street Fight, they can brawl anywhere on the Omni floor. Maybe last man standing, a pinfall, a 10 count. It would have made sense. But Buzz Sawyer and Abdullah bleed very quickly within a minute, and referee disqualifies or calls it no contest within barely 3 minutes, if 2.5 minutes, 2 minutes. And a brawl all over the Atlanta Omni Arena floor, everywhere. Even the crowd is following way in the back. And it's amazing where Buzz Sawyer comes back by himself. And then he goes out the opposite way with a police escort. But this would have been made more sense being called a Atlanta Street Fight, where they can fight all over the Omni floor. But Buzz Sawyer and Abdul the Butcher fight to a no contest. Alright, next match of the night is National Tag Team Champions, the Road Warriors, with Paul Ellering versus Brett Sawyer and Dusty Rhodes. And that's a strange combination. Dusty Rhodes and Brett Sawyer. It's, for 1983, it's interesting to see the young Road Warriors. And it's also strange for us fans who grew up in the Crockett years into the mid-80s, mid to late 80s, see Dusty Rhodes versus the Road Warriors. It's very strange to see that. It was a fairly good tag team. It tried to be a fairly good tag team match. And one thing about the Road Warriors, later in their later years in the middle late 80s, they were told learn not to sell. That's how it became a powerhouse tag team that nobody could defeat. Where their breakout year in 1983, they were selling. Really working with anybody that got in the ring with, especially a young Brett Sawyer. Thing about him, he reminds me, he kind of a short guy, but he reminds me of like a young, like a Sam Houston, a rookie, but he's not a rookie. He's an Atlanta star, and he's I believe the national heavyweight Georgia national heavyweight champion. It was a fairly good tag team match. Dusty Rhodes did all his hand drive moves. But here's amazing is that Dusty Rhodes was body slamming the Road Warriors. Wow, so they were selling for in their first year. They had to let alone their powerhouse persona. But they were selling for whomever they worked with, and it's strange to see that when we see them in their non-selling years, such a powerhouse team that nobody could defeat. One of the funniest moments was Dusty Rhodes holding on to one of the Road Warriors and working with them, and then Brett Sawyer comes sliding under Dusty Rhodes' legs and comes and clobbers that Road Warrior. Brett Sawyer was kind of acting like a midget at that moment. But it was a fairly good tag team match. Pretty long, but it's strange moments to see Dusty against the Road Warriors, where they would work with Dusty and the Road Warriors would be a long-time tag team into the late 80s. Brett Sawyer I had to look up. He's actually the real-life brother of Buzz Sawyer. And I thought they were I thought that was kayfabe, like a Story Brothers. No, they're real-life brothers. Eventually, it gets into a brawl, all from in the ring, but then Paul Ellering enters, and at that moment, the referee, Scrappy McGowan, has a throw of disqualification against the Road Warriors. No disqualification. There is no announcement of a winner. Eventually, Paul Ellering throws Scrappy Miguel at least twice out of the ring, and they clobbered, kind of take out Dusty Rhodes, but then they really do a clobbering job on Brett Sawyer. That kid, wow, the Road Warriors and Paul Ellering, and it's like Paul Ellering took a personal. He was clobbering young Brett Sawyer, getting on jumping off the ropes and clobbering this kid. Wow, he took it personally. Paul Ellering really personally clobbering that kid, and as the Road Warriors beat up on Brett Sawyer pretty good, and then finally Dusty Rhodes comes out. A lot of wrestlers come out, try to break up the brawl. They're trying to beat up that kid Brett Sawyer, and eventually Brett's older brother Buzz Sawyer comes out, and he knocks out the Road Warriors one at a time. Thing is, according to on the HistoryWWE.com website, it's labeled, it is recorded as a no contest on both teams. There is no announcement as who was disqualified or who won. From my point of view, it was Scrappy Miguel lost control of the Road Warriors. Paul Ellering when Paul Ellering entered to attack. When Paul Ellering came in as the third person to attack, I would be disqualifying the Road Warriors, and then Paul Ellering throws Scrappy Miguel and the referee out of the ring twice. I would have disqualified the Road Warriors, but it's recorded as no contest. But I would say maybe it got out of control, the situation, but it's recorded as no contest. But I would disqualify the Road Warriors for the Paul Ellering interference and throwing the referee out. All right, our last match of the night for the Atlanta Omni on November 6th is the really popular Atlanta star Tommy Wildfire Rich against Ted DiBiase, and both are well-known stars of the territories, if not Atlanta. Fairly good wrestling match between the two. It's the things that go on toward the ending that made absolutely no sense whatsoever. The one thing that caught off guard is looking at the referee and says, "Wait a minute, this is a black referee." And I'm not speaking racist here, but I've never seen a black, with the exception of Teddy Long, in the NWA in the late '80s, mid to late '80s. I've never ever seen a black referee. I said, "Wait a minute," and then the camera gets a better look at him. Holy cow, that's Pistol Pez Watley. It threw me off guard. He's in a white t-shirt, jeans. I'm saying, who the heck is this guy? Is this Pistol Pez Watley? And he does a fairly good job as referee. He does. He calls it right down the middle. He doesn't really, as much as he should have let these guys brawl, he does. He's been holding back Ted DiBiase a lot, but Pez Watley does a very good job of being a referee, and I think he does a better job as a referee than he does a wrestler, because I never saw him as a decent wrestler. He was a long time friend of Jimmy Vant till the '86 heel turn, but he does a fairly good job as refereeing this match. He kept pulling Ted DiBiase back a lot. I think in a vague interference, at one moment, both guys were down. DiBiase and Tommy Rich were down, and Pez Watt, he would throw his arms he'd have his arms outstretched out, calling a 10 count on both guys. No, he doesn't call a 10 count, but it's the way he had his arms stretched out. He was a pretty good referee. Tommy Rich eventually he becomes bloody. It was a fairly good match for the ending. I don't know why. Maybe it was just because they're stars of the area. Now here's the thing that really gets strange. It doesn't make any sense how this ended. All of a sudden, two blonde guys enter the ring, and I'm thinking, who in the hell are they? They're holding back Tommy Rich. And so, they're going to beat up on him? No. I can't tell what they're doing. I'm trying to get a good close look at these two blonde guys. Apparently wrestlers. They didn't work the whole night. I don't know who they were. Then trying to get a good close look is, wait a minute. It looks like Dr. D. David Schultz, a young version. Then the other one looked like Michael Hayes of the Freebirds. But I really can't tell if that was Michael Hayes. If anybody who's watching my review of this match could tell it looks like David Schultz. And I know he worked Atlanta a lot. And it looked like Michael Hayes was holding back Tommy Rich. And all of a sudden, they kept trying to put. Why in the world they were trying to pull these guys apart? Because it didn't look like there was an out of control brawl. No, Peswali had control of this match. He kept warning off Ted DiBiase a lot, but no, Tommy Rich bleeding. I mean, this is they were going to pull it apart because Tommy Rich is bleeding. I don't know. The ending made no sense whatsoever. According to the historyw.com covering this show, the history of WWE website covering this show has it marked as Tommy Rich defeats Ted DiBiase by disqualification. Now, it's announced at the very ending as they leave the ring as Tommy Rich has won by disqualification. What was the reason for a disqualification? The people entering the ring were pulling them apart. It's not like there was interference, like these guys entered and started attacking the wrestlers. No, there was no attack on the wrestlers whatsoever. They were pulling them apart. But I don't call this a pull-apart brawl. It's not like they were out of control. That made no sense whatsoever. It was once the two blonde guys, these wrestlers who were not even a part of the show, pulled Tommy Rich apart, and it wasn't a pull-apart. They were holding back Tommy Rich. What, he was bleeding? I mean, Pez Whatley was checking on Tommy Rich bleeding. It wasn't that much. Yes, Tommy, it was a good bleed, but it's not the point of stopping the match for blood. It wasn't. Nobody was attacking anybody. It's like this. It's like outside interference. There was no outside interference. That's why this match the ending makes no sense. And it was a pull apart. A bunch of then some of the wrestlers that did work during the night did come in for a pull apart brawl, holding back Ted DiBiase. But Ted DiBiase leaves the ring. Eventually, Pez Whatley's are outside the ring and helping Tommy Rich out because he's kind of bleeding. Pez Whatley raises Tommy Rich's arm and it announces Tommy Rich has won by disqualification. But I don't understand why. They were having a decent wrestling match, a brawl, kind of bloody. This match makes no sense of why it was pulled apart and why wrestlers had to enter the ring at all. So, to me, it was a no contest that it had to be pulled apart for no reason. These wrestlers were pulled apart for no reason. But, according to records, Tommy Rich defeated Ted DiBiase by disqualification. That's how it was announced. If you like this video, please subscribe, comment, like or dislike, and thank you for watching.